Today we're going to talk about two of my favorite question types, which a lot of you I think have familiarity with, and that's strengthen and weaken questions. But strengthen and weaken questions are essentially a type of flaw question, right? Because how do we strengthen or weaken an argument that isn't flawed in some way? And so when we're reading our stimuluses, we want to be reading critically and being like, can I poke a hole in this? Can I poke a hole in this? Can I, like, how would I destroy this argument? We want to be actively reading it and thinking like, oh, the person that we hate most in life is saying this. So for example, if the person you say hate most in life says, it's hot outside, so we should go get ice cream, how would we destroy that argument? We could say, well, we're lactose intolerant. We don't have money for ice cream. I actually like anything in the world but ice cream, or I would rather do anything in the world than spend time with you, right? Any one of these would destroy our argument. Or if I really want to support this person and they're your best friend and they make a silly argument, even though I don't think this is a silly argument, you want to help them and they're like making a fool of themselves on stage. You want to jump in and like add something to help them, right? And like, okay, I want to save this before they make a fool of themselves. And so if your friend said, it's hot outside, so we should get ice cream, you might jump in and say, and every time it's hot outside, we must get ice cream, right? Or, and ice cream's on me, like to support them, right? Like you're going to support your friend and you're going to buy everybody ice cream. So that's what we want to do on the LSAT as well. So while we're reading these stimuluses, we know that they're going to probably be flawed. So many of them are flawed. And so we have this argument here. More people prefer cake to veggies. So cake is better than veggies. Is this valid, Brittany? No. Why is this flawed?
Just because more people like it doesn't mean it's better.
Yeah, what does better mean? What are all the ways that something can be better?
Could just taste better.
Yes. And so like maybe cake wins in the taste category, but we could have nutritional value, we could have cost, we could have availability, we could have like I think there's like some type of measure of like what like a pound of food and how many people it serves. So like I forget what that's called, but like that. And so like what is better? We don't know, right? And so with our strengthen and weaken questions, these are going to be an example of bottom up. And what does bottom up mean, Lindsay?
Is that when you want a strong answer?
Yes, but why do we want a strong answer?
Is this when you're pulling in outside information?
Yes, because we get to bring in new information. So if this was a strengthen question, and this is my argument spectrum here, and we make an argument, it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. That's not a terrible argument, right? So we could put it like here on our spectrum. We want to bring in something that's going to help move our argument closer to that rock solid argument, right? And so the stronger the argument, the closer we're going to get to that rock. Where I think strengthen questions or weaken questions can be the most difficult is whenever the correct answer doesn't do much, but it still technically strengthens it. I think those actually tend to be the most difficult, where I'm like, all of these are really bad answers. All right. So for strengthen questions, we oftentimes use words like most strengthens, most supports, most justified. Something just to pay attention to is I also consider some principal questions strengthen. Some people call them pseudo sufficient questions, I think. I just call them strengthen questions. And that's like whenever it will say like, which of the following principle does most to strengthen the argument? Like we can treat that like a strengthen instead of principle. So it's one less question type to memorize. It's just the one thing you have to be careful of is sometimes there will be a question that will say, if the principle above is true, which one of the following like best demonstrates it? That would be like a most strongly supported question because you're taking the principle and you're applying it to the answer choices, which is different than whenever it says like a principle most justifies. So you really have to read the question to see what it's asking you to do, but don't be intimidated by the word principle. So many people are intimidated by it. And then weaken, most seriously, weakens, calls into question, undermines. What's the difference between undermines and underlies? I struggled with this for like probably 2 months when I was studying for the LSAT. Lauren, do you know?
I know undermines is when you're trying to ruin the argument, but underlies is when there's something that's in the argument itself, like you can infer from it.
Like it backs it up. I think of underlies as like it's like the support or it's like backing, like it like what's like the root of it or like or a root of it. So it's like very different, right? Underlies, they use that more in a reading comp. They'll say like which of the following like underlies something said in the passage. They're very different. So FYI, if you need to know the definition of those two words. All right. So how can we strengthen arguments? So the number one way, or like the basic way, is to just find the flaw in the argument and fix it, right? And so here, my argument says, if you look like Harry Potter, I'll marry you. Since you don't look like Harry Potter, we won't get married. What kind of flaw is this, Malika?
I want to say,
Or how would you, like, what is this person assuming, or how would you destroy it?
oh, I would say looking like Harry Potter is kind of subjective, or
Well, why does it matter if it's subjective? Is that what our flaw is here?
no.
So if you look like Harry Potter, I'll marry you. Since you don't look like Harry Potter, I won't marry you. What is that flaw?
Oh, is it like a switching the sufficient and necessary?
Yes, we're treating a sufficient condition as if it's necessary, right? So it's like if we don't have it, then it can't happen. So we know our flaw. So how could we strengthen the idea though? So this is a strengthen question. So we know it's flawed, but this is our friend that we're trying to support, right? And so they're saying like we won't get married. So what could we bring in to like help our friend out of like they're not going to marry this person? How could we fix that? What do you think, Sabrina?
Like maybe we could bring in something.
Focus on specifically fixing the flaw here. What do we have to make looking like Harry Potter in order for this to be a valid argument?
Could it be like more specific, like about Harry Potter?
We need to make Harry Potter a necessary condition. Right? This is more intense than I work with the other like than previously. But to fix the flaw, we could say, I will only marry you if I will only marry you if you look like Harry Potter. Because all of a sudden while it's still a sufficient condition in our argument, we now in our answer choices made it necessary, right?
Yeah.
So that would be, but that's not that's like the goal to get to on strengthen questions is be able to find the flaw and fix it. But sometimes it's difficult, right? And sometimes we don't see the flaw, and sometimes it's not always the case. So other things that we can do is deny an alternative possibility. So here, if I'm saying, this one actually might be hard to strengthen it. So I won't marry you. So what would be denying an alternative possibility kind of look like to strengthen the idea that I won't marry this person?
Would you date them?
So would that be denying that? I guess for here, denying an alternative possibility would almost be like suggesting another possibility. So what it would look like is like, I really want to marry this person instead, right? Even though that's actually promoting, we're denying not marrying someone else technically, right? Like, does that make sense?
Could you make them friends? Would that be the same thing?
Denying an alternative possibility.
Like, I won't marry you, but I'll be your friend.
So this isn't the greatest argument for this one. But like denying an alternative possibility is like, it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream. So our conclusion is we should get ice cream. Denying an alternative possibility would be like, and I hate popsicles. Or I hate all other treats. Or everything, there's nothing else to do today, right? Like I'm denying other things, which while it doesn't guarantee our conclusion by any means, by denying something, it at least gets us a little bit closer. All right. So for example, if our conclusion said, since you look like Harry Potter, I will marry you, denying alternative possibilities would look like I'm not going to marry any of these other people, right? I'm denying all the other options. All right. So then promoting the evidence relevance to the conclusion. So like in the it's hot outside, therefore I should get ice cream. One of my flaws is like, well, what does being hot outside have anything to do with ice cream? So I want to show why those two things are relevant. So here, if I said, if you look like Harry Potter, I'll marry you. Since you don't look like Harry Potter, we won't get married. My flaw is like, well, what does looking like Harry Potter have anything to do with getting married? But I could strengthen this, right, by promoting its relevance. So what would that look like, Taylor?
Like suggesting what Harry Potter looks like.
But why does looking, but kind of like, no, well, I don't think it matters like what, I don't think we have to describe what looking like Harry Potter looks like. We have to explain why looking like Harry Potter is relevant to you, to mean, or you not looking like Harry Potter is relevant to us not getting married. Like, why does that matter? Why could that matter? What do you think, Brittany?
Maybe you think anyone who doesn't look like Harry Potter is ugly.
Yeah, I'm promoting the relevance. Or I could say the most important characteristic I look for in someone is looking like Harry Potter, right? I'm promoting why it matters. All right. And then supporting evidence validity. This is oftentimes just in a survey. And so if I said my 5-year-old's favorite kind of ice cream is cotton candy, therefore cotton candy is the best kind of ice cream. I would say that, right, like my issue would be like, oh, that's a biased sample size, right? Or like 5-year-olds don't know everything. But if I'm strengthening that, what could I say? How could I support the evidence's validity?
You could like do some kind of a like broad survey of all 5-year-olds and they all picked cotton candy.
Yeah. Or say like what 5-year-olds think about ice cream, the majority of the population agrees with, right? Like I'm supporting its validity. All right. And then lastly, it's just providing additional evidence to support the conclusion. This is just like whenever we're struggling and we're just going to bring in something else that might not connect a premise to our conclusion, but it's at least relevant. And that was like, if you look like Harry Potter, or sorry, if it's hot outside, therefore we should get ice cream, like it's National Ice Cream Day, or I have a gift card, or the ice cream truck's outside. Like it's just an additional fact. And so if we did that for this one, for Harry Potter, we don't want to get married. Maybe it's like, you're a jerk, right? Like that has nothing to do with Harry Potter, but it's another fact of why we're not going to get married. Or maybe I'm already married, or you're already married. Like all of those things, right, are going to support our overall conclusion. And so then when we go on to our weakening questions, we want to do the opposite, right? We want to find the flaw and expose it. And how can we go about doing that? So here we say, in America, all people are created equal. So you might as well go out with me instead of waiting for someone better. Is this valid, Iman? This is a valid conclusion?
No.
Why not?
Because it's not true.
In America, are all people created equal?
Created equal?
Yeah. So on the LSAT, we have to take all our premises as true. So this part is true. In America, all people are created equal. So you might
I know, I'm sorry. It just because
no, you're fine. It's hard.
I had to question every single thing because I don't trust it. I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. So our premise is true. In America, all people are created equal. Like we do say that. But what's the issue with this? Or what kind of flaw is this? Who knows?
Like equal in what way?
Yeah, I would call this a faulty analogy. Like I would say, I see what you're getting at too, equal in one way, but I would say it's like a faulty analogy because we're comparing something that is like our civil duties or our civil rights to the qualities that we look for in dating. And that's like just, we can't compare the two things, right? We can't say one and then apply it to the other. And so if I want to weaken this, I want to expose that, right? And so ways that we can go about doing that is one, promoting an alternative possibility or explanation. So how could we promote something else? You could say there's a million other people that would fit your needs better than me, than that person would, right? Wouldn't that be promoting an alternative explanation? Excellent. All right, how could we deny the evidence's relevance to the conclusion? What would that look like? What do you think, Malika?
Would it be denying that going out with this person is unrelated to being in America and being created equal?
We need to deny our support's relevance to our conclusion. So we need to deny that this has anything to, that in America, all people being created equal has anything to do with our conclusion. So maybe it's the fact that saying that just because people are created equal has nothing to do with the standards I have for dating. Like we're denying that, we're saying like that doesn't matter. That's irrelevant. We could attack the evidence validity. So this is by saying like a study isn't properly conducted. This isn't super common, but that would be like if like the 5-year-old example, we would say that, well, you only asked 5-year-olds that live next to this ice cream shop and they only serve that one kind of ice cream. So it's too limited or it's biased. So maybe not all 5-year-olds actually have even had that kind of ice cream. And then lastly, you can just provide additional evidence to attack the conclusion. And so that might just look like here, saying like, I would rather be single the rest of my life than ever go out with you. Like it's just bringing in something additional to destroy that. So do we kind of see how this can work in different things that we can look for? Fabulous.